So welcome back to our second session about what is a human. But this week we're going to read some rabbinic texts, and by rabbinic texts I mean written by our rabbis of blessed memory, as we would say traditionally, rabbis with a capital R, which means the Jewish sages from, let's say, 2000 to 1500 years ago, 1400 years ago, something like that, right? So these are the people who wrote a text called the Mishnah, who wrote what's called the Talmud. Midrash is a genre of rabbinic literature. I'll explain these things, but also much of the prayer book, and we're going to look at some ancient prayers, or some prayers too, okay? And most of, all of Jewish thought comes from, the Torah, from the Bible, but the way of Jewish thinking really comes from our ancient rabbis, right? Or most of our Jewish thinking comes from our ancient rabbis. So we're going to look at, as I said last time, 2 weeks ago, a selection of texts from the Bible, from the Bible, not exhaustive about what it means to be a human, but some selection of texts that get us to think about it. And it's the same that I brought this time. A selection of texts, not exhaustive, but it might get us to think interesting thoughts about where we are today and where we might be in the future in this question of what is a human, okay? But before we begin, are there things that came from 2 weeks ago that we're still pondering, thinking about, helped us think about the world differently?
Well, I just had one thought regarding this in the last couple of weeks specifically, which was, I was just thinking, maybe this came up, but it seems like being uniquely human is pondering your own death.
So did people online heard that? Yeah, it definitely came up. I want to say, pondering our own death is something that makes us uniquely human, right? So, we could use the example, like my dog knows when something is dangerous and that it could, hurt him or maybe even kill him, but doesn't really ponder that. We have no evidence of that, right? But we as humans, I would say, one of the main reasons that life has any kind of meaning for us, or that we make meaning in life, is because we know we're going to die. We'll talk about that definitely tonight too.
And religion is all answering that fear.
I don't know. So Matt says religion is answering that fear. I don't know if it's answering that fear.
Or dealing with that fear.
Maybe dealing with it. Yeah. So some religions stress what happens after you die, and some, we're going to look at that a little bit. But some, but religion is definitely dealing with the fear of life and meaning, I would say, right? And life has meaning, I would say. Most religions would say, right?
There's less focus in Judaism on.
Well, I would say less focus on modern Judaism when we don't believe in ghosts and resurrection, right? So when we say Judaism doesn't believe in the afterlife, that's us into making Judaism make sense for ourselves. But no, our ancestors believed in an afterlife. They might have not been as clear as some Christian thinkers of the same time of what the afterlife is, but yeah, they did. Yeah.
Isn't that some of the interpretation of the Garden of Eden and the apple, that it's not just about knowledge, but knowledge of our own mortality?
Perhaps.
One of the interpretations that some of the rabbis had.
Perhaps.
There's so much more to being uniquely human.
Yeah. Okay. So Gail just said one thing she was pondering. What else is there more about being uniquely human? Can I ask someone to hit the screen over there so the pop-up ad came up?
A different way of thinking about the death thing, though, is so much of the Bible is about the lineage and who died and who came after.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different take on
the
concern about death and the mortality, the immortality of the Jewish people.
Yeah, right. The Bible, I didn't bring texts that talk about kind of an afterlife in the Bible, but for the most part, the Bible is not concerned about what an afterlife is, except descendants. Your descendants are your afterlife. The Bible is very concerned with, right? but the rabbis have some other concerns, maybe influenced by the Greek culture they were living in, or influenced by the Persian culture that some of them were living in, right? But we'll see. Yeah, good. So what any other things that we've been thinking about the last 2 weeks that make us uniquely human?
No.
But I felt we, Hayes, what we talked about 2 weeks ago, but I felt that we did talk about the element of rationality.
Yeah, perhaps.
And-
Being rationality, whatever that might mean, but being able to think, let's say, right? Yeah, good.
And, to me, when you talk about it, like, it's like, what happens when, the idea of the human being, the rational animal here, I'm not, as a Jewish thought, but I think it's an Enlightenment thought. And,
Good.
What happens when something else is better
Yeah.
than we are? We've always separated
Well,
ourselves
so-
from animals because we were the
Right,
rational animals.
right. We talked about separating ourselves from the animals from the creation stories where we saw, but what happens in the future when we create something that might be better than a human,
Right. And so,
right?
what like.
or more rational, or whatever, more powerful? We'll get to that eventually. So-
Or less evil,
Oh, sorry, Susan.
or
What?
less evil.
Or less evil, right? So I always point out, like when horrible things happen, where only in Israel a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about what happened in Maine. Like I don't know any details about it, but like people were talking about that while they were coming in.
Mhm.
I like to say, people who perpetrate horrible things are human, right?
Mhm.
They are doing human things. Humans are capable of hurting each other, and that is still very human to do.
I
Right?
just want to get what Leslie said. I don't necessarily think it's better.
Yeah.
But I definitely think throughout
Hmm.
intellectual history, there's a way that people separate themselves from the animals.
Hmm.
And I actually kind of feel that there's a little bit more of a challenge of whether that's better,
Take a look at that, if you-
because we may not be the top dog in that area.
Yeah.
Remember that we are as rational as we think we are.
Right,
That's a
for
hard
sure.
one, but
Right.
I'm gonna try buy the argument.
Yeah, I think, that's probably true also. So friends online, any other insights from last week's or things that you've been pondering? Yeah, it's always.
So there's some, I've been thinking about this as I had to prepare and talk for this issue. But I think things that make us uniquely human are one, that not only do we have language, but we have a really complex and complicated and nuanced language.
Language.
We have the ability to do computation at a high level.
Hmm.
We also have, I think, humans are unique in that they worship or have a religion. I don't think animals,
Yeah.
other living things have religion.
Right, yeah, that's a,
There are
yeah,
a whole series of things
that,
beyond simply the fact that we know we're gonna die
yeah.
that makes us unique.
So language, we're definitely gonna talk about tonight, but remember the creation story, the first creation story, how does God create? With language, right? And then, but the animals, remember we read Psalm, which Psalm did we read? I'll have to look back, but we read one of the Psalms, and it seemed like all of the animals had their way of worshiping in the trees, and they had their way of worshiping God in their own way, right? But we're definitely self-conscious of it, right? Okay, so,
But we're very tied to that is our ability to pass on knowledge through language in the way, like, other animals can teach an animal.
Yeah.
And make a tool and pass it on, but we're the only ones who can, without anything around
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
express it and then pass on the knowledge that can be carried forward.
right, or our technology of writing
Well,
too,
we don't really know that for sure,
right?
right?
What?
Like. How do we know when the trees communicate with each other
Right.
about the pheromones in the environment?
Right.
affect each
And we,
other,
and we learn more about the fungus under, in the roots that,
Yeah,
yeah,
That they don't have a broader way of communicating with each other.
True.
They don't have a self-aware conscious, I mean, maybe some do, but not to the extent that
Yeah.
humans do. I think
per-
that's.
perhaps, but I would say we definitely have, but language that we've developed technology to record language too, the writing. And then be able, the technology of letters to read, right? Which is a huge thing that humans do too, right?
I mean, I think that's, to me, I mean, I'm always looking for how we're connected and more like,
Mm.
and how animals are actually similar to us. I don't spend as much time pondering what makes us different.
Right.
Because it's amazing to me, like, I remember learning a long time ago, because I'm old, but I remember learning that we create tools and animals don't. And then later,
Yeah.
science found out animals. do
Chimpanzees
create
have tools, yeah.
You know, and, now, there's, the Coco who learned 1,000 words in sign language.
Yeah.
And, but then there was a more recent thing that came out where apparently this gorilla loved to watch Mr. Rogers on TV.
Yeah.
So he was cognizant enough so that when Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
He wanted to take off Mr. Rogers' shoes
Mhm.
because he always saw Mr. Rogers take off his shoes. That took a certain amount of rationality and reasoning.
And memory.
And memory
Yeah.
and understanding that is more similar to us than we sometimes like to
For
acknowledge.
sure. We're gonna see,
You know?
we're gonna read a text, hopefully we'll get to it. We're gonna read a text about the rabbis, our ancient rabbis comparing humans to other things, to other beings,
Yeah,
right? Maybe even other persons, maybe we can say when we get to this conversation about AI, right? So, all right, good. Shall we jump in?
yes.
Okay, so friends, online, here is the text where we're starting. Okay, we are starting with some prayers. Okay, and this is going to talk about, the first prayer that I want is going to talk about, like, well, we'll see what it's going to talk about, but I'll say you say this prayer, one of the first things you say in the morning, and it's a blessing that you can say throughout the day. Okay, so someone like to read. I mean, I can read it let me read it in Hebrew because it's poetic, just the sounding of the Hebrew, and then someone read it in English. Okay, so Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah uvara bo nekavim chalulim chalulim galui v'yadua lifnei chisech vodecha she'im yifatech echad mehem o yisater echad mehem אי-אפשר להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך אפילו שעה אחת. ברוך אתה אדוני רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. So someone read it out loud in English.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who forms the human with wisdom and created within it openings and hollows. It is obvious and known in the presence of your glorious throne that if one of them were ruptured, or if one of them were blocked, it would be impossible to exist and stand in your presence even for a short while. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh and performs wonders.
Okay, so this is one of the first blessings you say, one of the first blessings you say after you wake up, but when do you say it? After you go to the bathroom. Yeah. Right? So what is this pit? What is a human according to this blessing?
Well,
So I'll
first
tell
of
you,
all,
for a
wisdom,
lot of
like,
classical
like,
reform,
Bathroom.
a lot, right? So just a second, a lot of classical reform prayer books, like, the old Union prayer book wouldn't have had this in there because Reformed Jews were, like, early Reformed Jews were kind of squeamish about body
functions.
bodily functions, right? So you say it after you go to the bathroom, but I'm sorry, someone online said something? No? Okay. So what is it saying about a human?
We're physical beings.
We're physical, right? And our physicality has to be what?
Honored.
Well, honored, yes, but also like
Balanced and.
bound, yeah,
Yeah.
has to be working.
Yeah.
Because if it's not working, what can't we do? Which is one of the things that humans do, Matt said. Well, you can't go to the bathroom, but also you
Stand in his
can't,
presence.
you can't be fully in the presence of God unless you're working, right?
Why does it say wisdom first before it gets all that? Is that just a throwaway?
What's that?
Or-
What do you
so before it gets all the,
God created humans with wisdom.
And all these holes.
yeah, but the
Right.
wisdom,
Well, the wisdom of our body that work, the system of our physicality work. So all the holes and openings, right? But what can we say? Like, our ancestors didn't know about cells and all the. I mean, they knew about the organs. They knew that the body had to be working in concert with itself.
just
Right.
like the wisdom part here is
It's God's-
is not aligned with the physical part that comes next.
No, it's God's wisdom. No, God created, with God's wisdom,
Oh, I
created the
see.
human, right? It's not that the human has wisdom.
Okay.
That's a different blessing.
Yeah, got it.
But no, God's wisdom created this system that is intricate.
Way.
Yeah, so I think that's what it means,
Same
right?
exact thought.
With wisdom, God created the
With-
human
With these things.
with all these systems that work in balance. Right? That,
It's kind of like in concert with the thinking that God created the natural laws.
Yeah, for sure.
Universe
But-
works. So we're one of those things.
one of those
God's
things
the
that,
ultimate engineer.
yes,
Yeah.
good. God is an engineer and we are a machine in a way, right? And if parts of this machine break down, it's hard to be fully present, right? Now, what we could say, well, what does this mean for people who are disabled? What does this mean, right? Yeah. But I think it can mean something emotional. Disabled, maybe let's take that to the side for a second, but let's say you had kidney stones, right? And you had trouble going to the bathroom. Can you fully be in the presence of God? Meaning you don't feel like it. Like you can't, there, maybe it means there's like other things going on with you that like it's hard for you to be fully present. Doesn't mean you're not fully human. I don't know if they wouldn't say that, but it's hard to be fully present, right? So here's someone put something in the chat. Mary says, why are the words repeated twice? The openings and closings. The nikavim, halulim. I'm not sure. I will have to look, except for poetry effect.
It's like a way to emphasize it.
Yeah, it could be emphasis, but yeah, which is a poetic effect, I would say. Yeah, I've always just thought of it as the rhythm of the prayer. Yeah, I'm not sure
What are hollows?
how openings and closings, right? Like that's just one translation. One other translation is openings and closings. The
Hallelujah.
orifices it's talking about, right?
So
Your
it's like-
entrails.
Yeah, your entrails.
For example,
It's-
things that get filled and things that get empty.
Right, but it's also talking about your orifices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to have these to be human, or are these just different parts of the like? A human generally has 2 arms, 2 legs. So if you lose an arm, you're still human.
Yeah,
You lose a leg.
Yeah. But I would say it's focusing on the physicality of being a human, and you thank God for the physicality of being a human.
It
right.
doesn't mean if you have a problem that
So-
you're not human.
It doesn't mean that you're not human. It means that it's hard to, I think it means that it would be hard for you to be fully present with God because you have things going on that maybe need to be attended to, or that right. So I mean, in rabbinic law, though, like when you do have certain disabilities, it exempts you from certain mitzvot. Right. Now, did they look down on people with disabilities? They might have, right? They might not have. I have to look at it more. And a lot of people these days are writing kind of theologies of disability. But here, I don't see that as much here, except that it's kind of, you're saying your personal, you're saying the words that the rabbis are giving us are a way of you saying your own personal feelings at a time, right?
How about just that we're limited,
That
that we aren't perfect.
yeah, we're not perfect, right? Because I wake up in the morning and maybe my openings and closings are working, but my back hurts, and it's hard to get fully present in the morning when your back hurts. It takes a while, right? So yeah,
This is a preparatory prayer,
Yeah.
so it's a prayer before you.
before you say
say,
that,
like,
it's the morning, but before you say
start
morning
to
blessings,
eat,
yeah,
Stuff like
Yeah.
that, so they're kind of getting themselves ready
Yeah.
to be in the presence of God.
yes.
And so there, I think it's not a full commentary just on what it is to be human.
Right,
per
but
se,
except
but-
that, right, yeah, I don't think it's not a full nothing here's a full commentary, but I wanted to point out physicality is important, because then when you're going through the service, you do physical things. You wrap tefillin on your arm. If you don't have an arm, you don't wrap tefillin, right? You wrap tefillin on your arm. Being a Jew is not being disembodied. Being a Jew is being embodied and doing embodied things, right?
But if you don't have openings and hollows, then you don't stand for long.
You can't stand, yeah.
You can lose an arm.
Yeah.
you're Okay.
Yeah.
But if you lose orifice that allows you to.
Yeah.
Have bowel movements.
You could die, you will die. Yes,
Or you
Yeah.
can't urinate.
and when you die, you can't, you're, right, exactly.
Or if you can't breathe.
If you can't breathe,
Hearing, you could.
Right.
you could Probably get along without that.
exactly.
Now, like, when was this one written?
I don't know
When was it
exactly,
written?
I don't know exactly when it's written, but it's, but it's. I think, it's been in the prayer book for a long, long time.
Because it really, really doesn't make that separation between soul and
No.
body.
This
That's,
is-
the Greeks or. maybe
this
some
is
later
not-
writers would do.
This is not Plato saying that the most important thing about you is your immortal soul. They're saying your physicality is important. Is it the most important? I don't know yet. Let's look at the next prayer. Okay. I'm gonna read this too for the poetry and for the sound. Okay, page 2. Okay, this comes right after it in the prayer book. And I leave a word untranslated so that we could figure it out later, okay? But I'll read it in Hebrew. Elohai neshamash natata bi tohorahi, atabarata, atayatarta, tanefachta, v'ata mishamra bekirbi. V'ata tid litla mimeni, v'hachzira bi la'atid lavo, kol zman shahaneshama bekirbi modeh ani lefanecha Adonai Elohai. Hi, Elohei Avotai Ribon Kol Hamasim Adon Kol Haneshamot Baruch Atah Adonai Hamachazir Neshamot Bifkarim Meitim. Now I'll tell you that Reformed prayer books change this prayer a lot, but I gave you the traditional words. Okay. So I wanted to read it first because I'll give you those who take some Hebrew here. When you have a word, you see I'm circling it up there. When you have a word that ends in hey and there's a dot in it, that's called a meteg. If it ends in a hey with the meteg in it, you pronounce the hey.
Yeah.
Right? So atah virata, atah yitzarta. So what does it sound like? Breath. Sounds like breath. Because it says, God, the neshama you bestowed in me is pure. Oh, someone read it. But we'll figure out what neshama means in a second. So someone read.
My God, Neshama, which you bestowed in me is pure. You created it, you formed it, you breathed it into me, and you preserved it within me. You eventually take it from me and restore it in me in the time to come. So long as the neshama is with me, I give thanks to you, Adonai, my God, and God of my ancestors, Lord of all creatures, masters of soul.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to change that. It says souls here, but I should say master of nishamot. Sorry, keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
And so, bless.
Yeah.
Bless are you, I don't know, who restores the nishamot to dead bodies.
Yeah, right. Okay, so what is this nishama? I had to change the translation here, but I missed one of them. What is this nishama? The translation translated as soul, but what is it?
It's wind or spirit.
It's right. We read the creation story last time that God breathed into the human, right? It's
Residual.
whatever is animating a human. That's what it is, right? So like in different kinds of rabbinic thought and different kinds of Jewish thought through the ages, they say neshama is this part of your soul, and the nefesh is this part of the ruach, is this part, but we don't have that here. It just seems like the animating thing that God does to humans to make them alive. The life force, that's a good way, right? A good way to say it. The life force in you. But it's related to it's actually nishima with it, with the yud, but is breath in Hebrew, right? So okay. So good. So God puts it into you, then what will happen? Someday you'll die. But someday what will happen?
You have everlasting life.
Well, somehow you'll be physical again.
Yeah.
Right? You will be physical again. That's they got the idea of resurrection from us, right? It's like, it was a Jewish idea, ancient Jewish idea of the rabbis. There were Jews a little bit before the rabbis who didn't believe in resurrection, but the rabbis had the myth of resurrection. Okay? That someday in the future, you will be physical again.
In the Mount of Olives, or on the Mount of Olives?
Well, that we don't need to get into whole eschatology of it, but like someday you will be physical. why is that? Or why does this myth of resurrection? I can bring, we could have a whole semester on just what resurrection means, but why resurrection?
Because I'm gonna go with this, because it's a way to understand why bad things happen to good people.
That could be, but
You're
this
gonna
is
get
not,
to-
this is
you're
not
getting
talking
to the next
about, this is not talking about sin or whatever.
Okay.
What is it? The last blessing is about how important your physicality is. You are your physicality, right? And if there's going to be a world perfected where we all come back to enjoy, it's going to be you. It's not going to be some disembodied you. That's
But both
resurrection.
are important. It's
Okay.
physicality plus breath.
Plus the breath. Good. But you're not just some disembodied ghost, right?
So if you're coming back, does that make coming back as like, a hippopotamus, not a thing here? Like you're coming back
As you are you, and the you-ness of you is your full you-ness, right?
So cremation's a real problem.
Well, cremation's a problem for other reasons in Jewish law, because if God could miraculously resurrect you, you could bury in the ground, you'll eventually become dust too, right? Cremation's a problem in traditional Jewish law because you don't desecrate a body, right? You don't do anything to the body except bury it, right? It's seen as not honoring the dead body, right? That's why.
No, but it's not that you die, to me, it's that God kills you.
Well, that could be, yeah, that could be a euphemism, but
All right,
at
I'm
some
just
point your breath stops.
Yeah, because he takes it from you, it's not that happens in.
Right. So, so is it kind of a vision of kind of, going back into the earth, like you're becoming something else, right? But at
It's
some
kind
point,
of It's
So-
like continuity to me when I read
Yeah.
that. The continuity, like, okay, you die and then you'll come back. So it's just a feeling. It's kind of a comforting feeling, I think,
Mhm.
to know that.
For sure. But you'll come, but it's you. I think why I brought this prayer is that it's you as your full self, right? That's the important part. Now, we could say, today, yeah, you get buried and you will be resurrected as the grass that grows, and you are the nutrients of the grass that grow on top of your grave.
That's
Right.
what this is.
But this is, you will be you again someday, right? So the you-ness of you is your physicality. Is also your physicality, right? Okay.
Actually, that notion, it's secure to know that there's continuity. But I always thought that I come back, but this says I'm going to be me. I'm reconstituted.
Yeah.
My image was that my spirit, my energy goes back to an ultimate pool of energy,
Right.
and I come back as part of everything.
For sure.
So, well, but that's different than coming back as me.
Yes. Yeah. So right. So the rabbis have this myth that you will come back as you, as in the world perfected, that the righteous of all the nations will be resurrected. Right. And now I'm not saying that's literally going to happen, but what will literally happen is all your atoms will become parts of other things, right? Right. And that's kind of what you're saying. But I think it's saying something very important about what it means to be a human, is being a embodied creature, right? The myth of resurrection, and I say myth meaning that this is language and stories that ground our life in meaning. And one of the meanings is that you are you in a body, right? And that, I won't even say your body, because your body is you, right? That's what I'm saying, right? But yes, it's animated with something that's maybe beyond or from God, but we'll look at the next story. We'll read a story in a second that it says that you can't be one without the other, maybe, right? Or I gave away the punchline. So let's see.
No.
Okay. So the next story comes from,
Before you
yeah,
go on, you sort of left me a little bit in the dirt.
which will all be someday. Yeah.
But I'm not clear. I mean, I look at this saying, you know, that you're gonna come back or you're gonna restore me.
Yeah.
As being quote pure myth.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I've lived 80 years, I've never seen anyone come back.
Right. It's never happened yet. It happens at the end, in the world to come, when the world to come comes after so
That's more aspiration.
yeah. But it's not, right? But I see it as, you know, and the reform movement got rid of it for a long time. They crept back a little bit as an option in Mishkan Tefillah, but all the prayers for resurrection, the reform movement got rid of it starting in the 19th century because they say, you know, scientifically that can't happen, right? But if we look at it mythically, and by mythically I mean like it's an important story to tell because it's saying that, this is my reading of it, that you are not you without your flesh and bones. If I believe that the world will be perfected someday and we'll all get to enjoy it, you know, that's a Jewish view of the future, and grandma will be there with me, grandma's going to look like and feel like and smell like grandma, right? That's what it's about. Now, here's the question. Am I going to be resurrected as a 24-year-old, or am I going to be resurrected as, you know, an 83-year-old, right? So, right. But that, you know, actually, you know, I don't know of any Jewish writings that delve into it that closely. I think some Christian writings do, but whatever. You know.
Isn't there a psalm about the valley of the bones and how the
that's in Ezekiel.
yeah.
But it's pretty clear that it's like a parable, right? About the nation resurrecting itself, right? Coming back to the land of Israel. That's what it's about. But yeah, that the ideas of resurrection are partly built on that, but in other things too. Yeah.
So our Friday night liturgy, you know, we have the parts in play.
Metim, yeah. That means Mechaye Metim, God resurrects the dead. That's what it is.
And I'm not sure whether you say that.
I do, yes.
Since I can't understand it.
I say it because I think it's a beautiful myth.
Concept.
Yeah. Good.
But I think the idea of being alive in the body and doing good deeds now
Yeah, for sure.
and not
Yeah.
saying, oh, well, you know, when I come back, I mean, that's why
Yeah, no, it's
the
not about,
body is important.
it's right.
Yeah.
You need your body to do mitzvah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what counts.
Exactly.
You keep on,
That's life.
it's hard to say, but when you say you are your body. So
Yes.
you keep on, I mean, not, but it's hard to describe it.
Mhm.
Without making that kind of.
Right.
dualistic-
Just in our English language,
Yeah.
when we say your body, it
That's
means like
right.
you are something that is
That's
not your body.
But
Right. You know, like I
That's
listen to that, like
not what we're
when I'm like working out to the Peloton people, and they always say, "How does your body feeling? How is your?" I'm like, "Oh, the Peloton people are such dualists, right?" Meaning that, you know, yes, it's
whole, you know.
yeah.
You know, or Western society. or
Yeah,
West-
right. So good. And so the rabbis were influenced by the Greeks here. We still have this kind of thing that's kind of like a soul, but they're not saying that the body needs to be shed, needs to be thrown off, is corruptible or whatever, right? That's where that was that was more from Plato or people like that, right? Yeah.
But what about the whole idea in Kabbalah where it's the soul that moves?
Right,
You know,
right.
trends.
Well, that's a little more confusing and like that's beyond the scope of this because I'm dealing with the ancient rabbis and not
Okay.
medieval stuff. So I would say ask Eric in a couple weeks.
Okay.
But yes, there are ideas of in some mystical thought in Judaism. What is mainstream and what is not is a historical question. But in some mystical strains of Judaism, there was idea of reincarnation. But I don't know. Not all communities at all times.
Right.
And the rabbis didn't believe that.
I think we also eventually will get to the concept of sentience.
Sentience, yes, we'll get to sentience.
And
Good.
I think that what constitutes that and whether it has to be carbon based,
Good.
are only animals sentient, or can you have silicon based machines the same thing.
Good.
How you determine.
Yep. Well, we will see, the rabbis will talk about that, even in the ancient days. We'll see. Okay, good. So now, here's a story about body soul, okay? But the words we use are goof, which is your flesh and bones.
Disney named the
Good.
dog Goofy after
Goofy.
Goof. I heard that, stupid.
I have no idea, but then goofy just means like silly, right?
Right, but body without a head, body
did-
without a head, that's what I was told.
No, I have no idea.
Oh.
So goof means body, means your physicalness, and the word neshama, right? You see, I'm circling there is this word we already learned, right? Okay, so here we have a story from the Talmud. Someone want to start it? And Antonios, I don't know what page I'm on now. Page, Yeah.
208 at the bottom.
at the bottom of page 2, yeah, at the bottom of page Sanhedrin 91a. Okay, so start where it says in dark type Antonios or Antoninos, right? So how this works, this translation is the Steinsaltz translation of the Talmud. When it's dark, when the translation is bolded, that's literally what it says in the Hebrew. When it's not bold, is the words you need to fill in so it makes sense in English, right? Okay,
I can read.
because the Talmud kind of speaks in cryptic language sometimes. Okay,
Antoninos, the Roman emperor, said to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the body and the soul are able to exempt themselves from judgment for their sins. How so? The body says, the soul sinned as from the day of my death when it departed from me. I am cast like a silent stone in the grave and do not sin.
right? So the Roman emperor is a good, Roman Greek dualist, right? So what is he saying?
Well, the soul is more important than the body.
Maybe, yeah, okay. But he's saying, like, if we get judged, if you Jews believe that, after you die, you get judged, right? So can't the soul say,
It's my body's.
I didn't do it, but I didn't.
yeah, okay, so keep going, yeah.
Okay, so, and the soul says, the body sinned as from the day that I departed from it. I am flying in the air like a bird, incapable of sin. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said to him, I will tell you a parable. To what is this matter comparable? It is comparable to a king of flesh and blood who had a fine orchard, and in it there were. Where are we?
Keep going.
Sometime.
Oh, it might have skipped some, I don't know.
The figs.
There were.
Hmm.
Sometime later.
This is the beginning.
Oh, did I miss a section of it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
missing.
Here, let me pull it up. Hold on one second.
And Hebrews
The sentence is not
91
jiving with me.
Yeah,
17.
sorry, I missed I didn't copy a section maybe. I will pull it up. Watch the magic of Sefaria.org and or Sefaria.com or .org, and we can have every classical Jewish text at our fingertip, which our ancestors used to memorize. Right. Or 91b. Yeah,
No, it's A, the end of A.
yeah, the end of it. Great. Okay, I'll read the story then. Okay. Okay. So to what I will tell you a parable. To what is this matter comparable? To a king of flesh and blood who had a fine orchard. Usually when a rabbinic parable, when you say a king of flesh and when you say a king, we're supposed to also think of kind of God, right? Okay, but this regular king had an orchard, and in it were fine first fruits of a fig tree, right? Do we have that anywhere?
No,
Yeah, no, the next page.
the next page,
Oh, did I?
Where the,
the
it
ways
doesn't say
that they.
fine, but.
Oh, okay, so never mind. That's the next part. Okay,
Okay.
and he stayed, so just listen and you could look up here.
Okay.
To the people online, I'm sorry that, you guys could just see, right? The fine first fruits of a fig tree. And he stationed 2 guards in the orchard. One lame who was unable to walk, one blind. Sorry, the translations. One who's unable to walk and one blind. Neither was capable of reaching the fruit on the trees in the orchard without the assistance of the other. The lame person said to the blind person, I see fine first fruits of a fig tree in the orchard. Come and place me upon your shoulders. I will guide you to the tree, and we will bring the figs to eat them. lame person rode upon the shoulders of a blind person, and they brought the figs and ate them. Now you can pick up, right? Now you have it sometime later.
Sometime later, the owner of the orchard came to the orchard. And he said to the guards, "The fine first fruits of the fig tree that were in the orchard, where are they?" The lame person said, "Do I have any legs with which I would be able to walk and take the figs?" The blind person said, "Do I have any eyes with which I would be able to see?" I think we know where this is getting. Sorry, next page. So, can't wait for the end. The way to the figs, what did the owner of the orchard do? He placed the lame person upon the shoulders of the blind person, just as they did when they stole the figs, and he judged them as one. So too, the Holy One, blessed be he, brings the soul on the day of the judgment and casts it back into the body as they were when they sinned. And he judges them as one, as it is stated, he calls to the heavens above and to the earth that he may judge his people. He calls to the heavens above. This is the soul which is heavenly, and to the earth that he may judge his people. This is the body which is earthly.
Okay.
So he's melting them.
Right. So again, we have resurrection. If you are going to be judged, you are going to be judged as a full person, right? And so that's why, we don't need to talk about what happens in between after you die, but for the time you do get resurrected, but right. So again, so we have kind of a dualism, a soul body split, but then it needs to be unified again, right?
So it's like intent and action.
Yeah, intent and action, I think, is part of it. Yeah. Your bad thoughts are your bad intentions are also sins, your bad actions, just like your bad actions. But you can't have, but you as a person who is judged as a full person, right? Okay, comments, questions?
Just like in life.
Just like in life, great, yeah. Okay. Good. So now let's talk about sentience, right? So what does sentience mean?
Sense of being aware of who you are.
Right. Right. So does an animal I'll ask the biologist, does an animal have sentience?
I think animals probably do.
Yeah.
Now it may be different, it may be fleeting, it
Right.
may be in the moment.
Yeah.
But then humans are in the moment.
Yeah, right.
Devil's advocate, I'm actually the only one that I know is sentient.
Right, for sure. We don't know that you are not, I don't know that you are not all computer simulations. I don't know that I'm not in a computer simulation, right? But we assume because we assume from our own experiences in life that other people have experiences like that, right?
It's just that people on Zoom are not sure about, right?
Right. You guys could all be AI right now, and I have no idea, right? So, but let's say partly it's about being alive, right? Okay. So here we go. We're gonna learn about the golem. You've heard about the golem?
Yeah.
Here, let's take a second. So the word golem in Hebrew, it means a clod of earth, okay. But it come to mean also like a artificial person, right? Okay. Now there's famous stories, different stories throughout Ashkenaz, Jewish medieval Europe about different golems. The most famous is probably the golem of Prague. You might have heard of that, right? If you've been to Prague, I've never been to Prague, but I've seen there's a statue of him there, right? That the rabbi made the golem to protect the Jews against the anti-Semites, right, or against their Gentile neighbors, right. There was a golem of Chelm, right, where my father-in-law is from the town of Chelm in Poland. There was a golem of Vilna too. I think. If you ever read The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, have you ever read that?
Yes.
Great book, from about 20 years ago. Michael Chabon, the novelist, the Golem of Prague plays a central role at the beginning.
Scares the boys.
Right, and so, you know, there's been tons of literature written about Golem, like fiction and also early I think it was a silent movie. One of the most famous movies from the silent era was about the Golem of Prague, right? And so is, you know, so but where's the first golem that we know about? I think comes from this right here in the Talmud. Okay, so Sanhedrin 65b. Okay. So Rava was one of the sages. So someone want to read that?
Rava says, if the righteous wish to do so, it can create a world, as it is stated, that your iniquities have separated between you and your God. In other words, there is no distinction between God and a righteous person who has no sins. And just as God created the world, so can the righteous.
Right. So remember, one of the things we said last week, though, we as humans are also creators, have the creative. It is saying here they could create a world. What does that mean? Okay.
Well,
Indeed, Rava created a man, a golem, using forces of sanctity. Rava sent his creation before Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera would speak to him, but he would not reply. Rabbi Zera said to him, you were created by one of the members of the group, one of the sages. Return to your dust.
Okay. So it's a very cryptic story, and then, you know, gets expanded upon in later Jewish thought, but like, what is this about?
It's the limits of our ability to create a world like God created.
Right. So maybe it's saying even Rava was not totally righteous and he shouldn't be able to do that. Maybe is that what you're saying?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. But we should, it's saying it, but it's saying kind of we shouldn't do this.
Right, right.
Yeah,
It's like,
maybe.
it's
But
odd.
what's the problem with this man that's created?
He doesn't,
it's probably not sentient. He
He
doesn't even
can't
know
talk.
he's.
Maybe he's not sentient. Okay. He can't talk. Seems like he doesn't reply, right?
Can't talk or won't talk.
Not sure. But he would not reply. He didn't reply, right? So if he doesn't talk, like they knew of humans that couldn't vocalize, but humans communicate, whether you could vocalize or not, right? So he's saying maybe it's saying it's not human, not sure. Right?
It's also saying that just like someone could create him, someone else could destroy him.
Someone could
It's
destroy.
just a word.
With just a word, yeah, for sure. We can be creators and we can be destroyers both with our words, right? Good.
it's like.
Yeah. It says the writer, right? But that, I think that's very central to the creation in the Torah, yeah.
Is it like Frankenstein? You're
Yeah, no, Frankenstein is definitely Frankenstein is definitely influenced by the golem myth, Jewish golem myth, even though Frankenstein was not written by a Jew, right?
No,
But it was influenced by that.
it's creepy to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
He doesn't, I mean, I thought Frankenstein too, I mean, you feel for Frankenstein, not feeling for this guy.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Not yet, right? We don't have the full, like, the story hasn't been fleshed out, sorry, the pun,
Oh.
like other medieval stories have been, but yeah.
He also hasn't done the putting on the Ritz.
You couldn't understand, yeah,
It was just on TV.
right, yeah, no, very nice. Good.
Sorry.
Any other ideas? Like, it's very cryptic, the story, so,
So there's made a point that he's a protector of sorts.
right, that's in the medieval stories, yeah.
It doesn't seem that you can do too much here.
No. Rabbi Zera seems to think that we shouldn't be doing this,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, right.
Even a saintly person like Rabba shouldn't be doing this, right?
And doesn't that just show that no matter how righteous and saintly a person is, they still don't have
Yeah.
God's power.
That could be part of the story, but it's also saying like, even Rabbi Zera, even this person in front of him, he needed to make a limit between what is a person and what is a human, right? And therefore he's able to destroy it, which a human, he wouldn't be able to do, right?
It's a little
Maybe
different-
that's what it's saying.
a little different from what you said, it's like. We maybe could do it, but we shouldn't.
Maybe that's what it's saying. I don't know. I'm puzzled by this story. I'm not sure, but it's trying to make, part of it is kind of trying to make a distinction between a human person and a non-human person, right?
in
But
the
also,
cabinet.
but there's also maybe a distinction between God and
Yes.
humanity.
Yes, that's all, yeah, for sure.
You know, to say there is no distinction between God and a righteous person who has no sins, that's a lot of hubris.
Right, so maybe, so then so maybe it's saying there's no such thing as a righteous person with no sins.
Maybe that there's no such thing as no distinction between
Yeah,
a human being and God.
right, right.
You know, even if someone's totally righteous and has no sin, even if.
Yeah.
To say that there's no distinction between God and that person.
Mhm.
It seems like a real big reach.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Perhaps the creating a man then becomes the first sin.
Right, maybe. Yeah, so all of a sudden Rava had no sin, but because he had no sin is able to do the thing, but as soon as he did it, he has a sin, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right,
maybe.
because it's overreaching.
Yeah, maybe.
In
Maybe.
Cavalier and Clay, the interpret for the golem is like the boy's consciousness, like.
Yeah, I can't remember.
conscience, like that's what I mean.
Oh, right, I
Like,
can't
they're really
remember.
mischief, and I
Yeah.
think, it's like.
No, but at the beginning, he get put in the coffin and smuggled out of Prague. Yeah, right. Okay. I can't remember exactly. I'll have to reread it.
But-
Okay. Good. Any other comments? Should we go on to the next one? Okay. The next one comes from a text called Avot de Rabbi Natan, which I think it's not as ancient as some of the other ones we've read, but it's a text that kind of expands on the work Avot, which is in the Mishnah, right? You know, called Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the ethical sayings of the sages, right? So this is going to compare humans to other things. Okay. In fact, I got this, I heard of this text from, I was reading something by Rabbi David Zvi Kalman, who these days writes a lot about AI and Judaism. And he said this might be a good text to help us think about what does non-human persons mean, right? He actually says better than that Golem text, but I couldn't pass up the Golem text, right? So let's see. I don't know what to make of this text so much, but we'll try. Okay. So
It's 5, 8.
right. So page 5, right? So Avot to Rabbi Natan, right? So it means that Avot, which was the section of the Mishnah, but this is Rabbi Natan's Avot. Okay. So someone like to read here. 7 things were created.
I'll read.
Yeah.
7 things were created, and each one was greater than the next. God created the sky, which was then the greatest thing of all. Then God created the stars, which were even greater, for they could illumine the world. Then God created the trees, which were even greater, for they produced fruit, which the stars could not do. Then God created the wicked winds, which were even greater, for they could go from place to place, while the trees could not move from where they were planted. Then God created the animal, which was even greater, for the animal could make things and eat, which the wicked winds could not. Then God created the human being, which was even greater, for the human being had the capacity for knowledge, which the animal did not. Then God created the angels who served God, who were even greater, for they could move from one end of the world to the other, which the human being could not do.
Stop. Okay.
The hierarchy.
Yeah. So okay. So the human's not the top, right? Okay. But what makes things greater?
Knowledge.
Well, that's what makes a human greater than the other things, right?
The other ones can't.
Yeah, the ability to do something the others can't, right? So okay, so there's a hierarchy here, but it's making distinctions between things in the universe, right? Right. And maybe we can say more, I don't know, more self-knowledge plus, I guess the angels have self-knowledge plus superpowers, right?
And movement, right?
Movement, yeah, movement's important, right?
Does it imply that as you go up, you have the abilities of the ones that came before? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about that, yeah.
I'm not sure.
But definitely movement, yes, it seems like, yeah, we can't make fruit, but it says we can make tools, right?
Maybe don't have knowledge.
Yeah, right, we can reproduce, yeah, maybe,
Well, so do animals though.
yeah, right, but the animals
Animals come
come
between the fruit and the, right?
Yeah.
The wind can.
correct, but the wind can move, right? Which the other things couldn't do, right?
Well, the
It's
angels
not
don't
higher
have-
than the other ones.
What's that?
It's not very clear to me what really makes some higher than the others, the wind being higher than. Things came.
Right, now, now we could also think, sometimes we have to not take things so seriously, and it could just be trying to be a little funny also, right? Because we think, oh, it's a religious text, it has to be like totally serious or true or something like that. No, it could be kind of silly. But yeah, like, I don't know, the wind's, you know, it's not really moving, and the trees kind of do move. The trees only move with the wind, but they're kind of are because they grow, or, you know, I don't know. But
Silly works for me.
what's that? Yeah.
Silly works for me.
Yeah.
Because it's not really.
But it's still trying to say, like, it's still trying to get at what makes a human different, right? And right now it's saying knowledge, right? Okay.
What you were saying, Matt.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what you were saying.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now, next paragraph, 6 things can be said of a human. Someone read this one. Anybody online want to read?
I can read. Can you hear
Please.
me?
Yeah.
6 things can be said of human beings, 3 ways in which they are like animals, and 3 ways in which they are like the angels who serve God. 3 ways they are like animals. They eat and drink like animals. They reproduce like animals, and they excrete like animals. And the 3 ways they are like angels who serve God. They have understanding like the angels who serve God. They walk upright like the angels who serve God. And they speak in the holy tongue, that is Hebrew, like the angels who serve God.
Uh-oh.
Darn it.
Good. Mary.
It sounded like-
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so good. So in some ways we are just like animals. We do things, but in some ways we're different than animals. And that's saying like angels, we're like the angels, right? Because, and what is that? What are the things that make us different than animals? Well, walk upright, right? I mean, yeah, I guess, I mean, you know, the gorillas don't walk totally upright, right? But okay, what else? Knowledge and speaking, which are all things we said before we started, right? Yeah, especially Hebrew, which is God's language, they're saying right here, right? Okay,
But animals do speak.
right. So animals
They
communicate.
communicate.
Animals communicate. Now, they didn't know, like now they're saying maybe dolphins have a language and or different,
Whales and-
or maybe different humpback whales and different pods have different languages than other ones or whatever. I don't know. But you know, our ancestors didn't know
Right.
that much, but they knew that animals communicated with each other. They don't speak Hebrew.
Right.
Right.
Oh, neither do I.
Although your dog will understand some Hebrew commands, right? But it's not speaking. And even like they may have known of parrots too, but you can tell that the parrot's not really speaking to you, right? I don't know where parrots from. Are they from? If they were from Africa, then they probably know that.
We could speak additional languages to
Yeah.
Hebrew.
Yeah.
Whereas the angels could not. Which is why they
Angels
wrote-
could only speak Hebrew. Yeah, right. That's why you say certain prayers in Aramaic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus,
Right.
plus
Hold
our,
on.
No, that's.
our language is much more nuanced.
Yes.
Concepts are much. deeper
Yes.
than that.
We-
I don't think animals think philosophically.
We could say,
about-
we could talk about abstract things because of language,
Yeah.
right? Even though we can't totally get to abstract things with our language all the time, but we could come close to it, right? Yeah. Okay. Good. Shall we keep comparing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. Who wants to do the next one?
6 things can be said of demons, 3 ways in which they are like human beings, and 3 ways in which they are like the angels who serve God. The 3 ways they are like human beings, they eat and drink like human beings, they read. Is this ready before?
No, but it's similar to the other one, but it's talking about demons now.
Okay, they reproduce like human beings, and they die like human beings. And 3 ways they are like angels who serve God. They have wings like angels who serve God. They know what will happen in the future like angels who serve God. And they can move from one end of the world to the other like angels who serve God. And some say that they can also change their faces into any form they wish. and that they can see for their themselves unseen.
Whoa.
Now I know where horror movies come from.
Yes, yes.
How-
All right, so yeah, maybe, so I mean, the rabbis lived in, like, the cultures had angelologies and demonologies, right? You know, and so, but how are we, why is it bringing up demons, though?
Yeah.
Because we're like demons also. We're like the angels, but we're also like the demons, right?
But weren't demons once angels and they fell or something?
That's not getting
Is
into that here. I
okay.
mean, that you could find that in some Jewish stories of the time and definitely in Christian stories of the time, but that's not what they're bringing.
Okay.
I mean, that could be behind there, but that doesn't seem to be what they're concerned with. It just seems like they're trying to compare us to them, and there are these different beings in the world that are persons, you can say. They are sentient beings that have, you know, have stuff like us,
Characters.
but they're also different, right?
I assume the demons are evil.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. They're the things that give you diseases and things like that, yeah.
So, but then earlier he was creating this hierarchy,
Yeah.
and he was saying, you know, how this is greater than this, and this is greater than that, and angels were greater than us. So he now is comparing, and then they compared us to angels.
Yeah.
You know, and they said, okay, this is the similar ways we're like angels, and these are the ways that we're different. So here, so where do demons fit in the hierarchy?
Equation.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's not hierarchy. Now it's like trying to figure out where we fit
Right.
with the other stuff.
Where we
Right.
are
Is
demons.
it or is this describing us or the demons?
That's what I was.
We're
This
part
is-
that's what I was
angel,
gonna
part
go.
demon.
Maybe we're a little, and one of the some says we're a little lower in the angels, but but we're also kind of like the demons, right?
Can we?
We're like the demons or the demons are like us? 'Cause
Yes.
he's saying 6 things can be said of demons.
Yeah.
And he's going into the description of the demons, he's not comparing.
But we do the same thing, like we eat and reproduce and stuff like that, like demons do, right?
But
So
they
does he
can't be
later go
seen.
on and say other things?
But they
about
can't be
us?
seen. Yeah, that makes it scary, right?
Yeah.
Well, so, okay, good. So let's, everybody online, is it okay that I took the text down or you want it back up? Here, take it down. Okay, so Rabbi Common says this is a good text to now think about AI. This one about the angels and the demons. Why might that be?
Can't see AI.
Well, because
But AI is both good and bad, but it's also,
whatever you deposit, whatever AI is made from.
yeah,
Could be good and bad.
right. And I'll say it's physical, it is physical, it is a thing made out of, silicon and wires and whatever, right? But it's also disembodied in a way like this demon, right? Or even like the angel, right?
But the
Okay,
angel's not this. I mean,
the angel's not, the demon's
demon's not
invisible,
disembodied.
he's
So the
invisible, yeah,
The demons, they eat and drink, they reproduce, and they die.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
a demon.
Oh, they're very embodied, but they're invisible, right?
Yeah, I have
It
a
can be
question.
invisible.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
The question is, why bother changing their faces if they can't be seen?
That's, I was wondering.
I don't
that
know,
too.
I'm not sure. That's a
I
good
was-
point.
Struck me was just about how a lot of people look at AI. We have the myth in Judaism about we're a reflection of God, or in the
Yeah.
image of God.
Image of God, yeah.
And to me, a lot of these stories are really about us. And to me, the connection with AI is that AI, to a certain extent, is in the image of us. I'm just
For
thinking
sure.
about some of the,
That's why AI is racist already.
I was gonna say, it's
Right.
kind of like the racist
Right.
kind of, I was
There's
gonna say
demons
that,
in
there was
there.
kind of racist.
Yeah.
Kind of view
Yeah,
is a function of that.
right. So let's think about embodiedness and the future right now too, because I think the embodiedness, I've tried to bring texts that have a lot to do with embodiedness, right? So let's think about AI in future. And, again, like I planted the seed last time, and we'll definitely try to get to it in the spring. Did I bring up this example that can happen now? I'm not sure that you give AI all the texts between you and your mom, all the emails, record conversations, everything, so that the AI learns your mom. And then you feed it pictures of your mom, and then your mom dies, and now you have your mom on as an AI on your computer. This can happen now,
Wow.
right?
There's that movie about that.
I'm sure.
It's hologram.
Yeah, so you could have holograms too, right? Right, but there are computer programs that you can do this now.
Wow.
Is that a disembodied version of your mom?
Boy,
So,
I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't
Eh,
know.
But you could like it have you can do it. There are companies that do this.
This,
It's
going
a-
back to
that's
one comment
disturbing.
before, I don't
Yeah.
think AI itself is inherently anything. It's not racist or
Right.
non-racist.
Right.
The racism is the training or the data.
Right,
that's
the
fed
data,
into
yeah.
the AI.
Right.
I think, I'm trying to remember what the Turing test is, but my recollection is that the Turing test is that when you have AI that can produce, say, language, and if you give it to a human judge, the human can't tell whether it's from a human source
Or
an
Wonder where
artificial
they have that.
intelligence.
That's a-
right.
So that it's hard to say that one, is sentient or not. I know that there was someone, I can't remember which company, maybe from Microsoft, who was fired because he thought
Yeah,
that AI had actually achieved,
right.
just like.
Most
you
people
say,
disagree with that guy, right?
Yeah, but I mean, Ken, I guess, was saying that he was sure he was sentient, but he wasn't sure about the other people around the
Right.
table.
Right.
Well, I'm not sure that, you can look at AI and be any sure less than you can be sure
Right.
of a human being.
Right. And so, yeah, definitely.
You don't
And,
want to hurt
and
their-
so what
you don't
what
wanna
I
hurt their feelings.
what I've learned, yeah, good. Well, we just assume because that's the experiences we're having, so we assume that others are having similar experiences, right? And so,
They can come and get you.
for sure. And so, like from reading from David Zwick-Hamann, you could get on his Substack. It's like a newsletter they send you. It writes very interesting stuff that like the rabbis kind of were thinking through these boundaries of different kinds of persons, right? Angels, demons, humans, maybe animals, different kinds of things. And even like in the Jewish ethics of abortion too. The fetus, is a different kind of person. They'll say it's an appendage of the mother at a certain point, or we can say it's biologically a human, but is it yet an independent person, right? And these are all questions. And so then the question is what is your obligation to it, or what is your responsibility or role to it? And so when we read the Golem story, Rabbi Zera said, I don't have a responsibility to this person, right? But when you read the angels and demons, maybe we do have responsibilities to them. They're not human, but they kind of are, right? And so that helps us also think about our future too. What's right? I heard this interview with the science fiction writer Ted Chiang. What's that?
He's great.
He's great. Like, yeah, I like his writing. What was that movie that came out a couple of years ago with that was based on one of his stories about aliens that come and their language is
The spiders.
no.
I read the story.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know about the movie.
I forgot what it is, but anyways, he said he doesn't want AI to be so advanced because humans do horrible things to other humans, and what if AI is sentient? We're gonna do horrible things to them, right? So
Depends on
I
what
think
you
if
feed
I
it.
remember, I think that's what he said.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Right, but what will we? If AI becomes sentient, can you torture it? Right? Can you
Right. I mean,
right.
there's a- yeah,
enslave it,
can-
right?
yeah.
Can so
Can you
what?
overwork it? Can you?
Yeah, so right over. So the rabbis are concerned. I'm kind of rambling here. I'm sorry, but the rabbis are concerned about other kinds of persons and what is our relationship to them, right?
Well, go back to the disembodied mother,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
AI mother.
yeah.
I mean, let's say you feed all this stuff in. It's just, you're just feeding in what you have access to.
Right. Yeah.
What about the other experiences this person had in their natural life?
Right. So let's say we get so advanced, right? So advanced that we could record all of our experiences from the time we're born, right? let's say, like someday we'll put something in our baby's head that records all the experience, external and internal experiences that they have. And then when they're, old age and they die, and then you can take that chip out of their head and you can then upload that into a computer, right? Is that person then living on?
Yeah.
So like, why do
Yeah,
back to the embodiedness, right? That's why I wanted to bring the embodiedness. Is our embodiedness, which is different than the embodiedness of the angels and the demons, right? Is our embodiedness what makes us human?
Well,
And back to the story in the orchard.
With the life force.
The embodiedness with the life
You know,
force, yeah.
'cause you can't separate them.
Yeah.
It's a
Right?
vehicle.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, and there's our movies and stories about people who do something like what you've described, and they recreate their children or these people. who
Yeah, yeah.
can't. But, or they clone them,
Yeah.
there's all
Yeah,
kinds of
yeah.
different things.
Stem
But
cell,
they
yeah.
don't treat them the same.
Yeah.
They end up not
Right. So what,
connecting to them and treating them in the same way. And they aren't as careful for them, and they aren't as loving for them.
right.
They don't connect in the same way.
Right, so okay,
You
now
know, it's fascinating.
if I remember, Blade Runner, remember the movie Blade Runner was based on a book that I read a long time, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And you didn't know, in that world, you didn't know who was a human and who was an android, right? So does that mean you could act like, so you have to be,
Oh, boy.
you have to be human too, you have to treat everybody like a human, right? I think that was one of the points of the book, if I remember, I don't remember, but, yeah.
There's a whole series about that.
Yeah.
The world was nearly destroyed and, and then they're being chased.
Right.
Um,
So,
forget what that was called.
and so, we have no answers here from these texts, but it gives us kind of that our ancient rabbis were thinking about kind of similar things of what's the limit of humanness, right? And even about creating other human-like things, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's there,
And so,
the intro to AI.
yeah. And so, yeah.
And so just to add to what you're saying, Ted Chiang, he's such a good writer. If you're interested, it's Exhalation is one of his books. And there's every chapter is like a short story. But what he does is he tells a story and then he tells you the philosophy
Oh, yeah.
or that's behind what got him to create it. So he would jump into all of these concepts after he tells the story. So it's a great introduction. And some of the things you're talking about,
Yeah.
were some of the short stories.
Right.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah. And so,
Escalation.
Exhalation.
exhalation.
Like exhale.
Like what God does to animate our body, as it says, right? And so, so as we move next month into, we're going to continue with these questions, but read other kinds of texts from Jewish history, more philosophical texts. So keep thinking about these things, and then eventually in the winter we'll get to more, pure science lessons. But I'm going to, with Susan online and Matt here, I'm going to like interrupt them with Jewish questions and ethical questions, right? So, but and then eventually we'll get to the AI, and I just
Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica, sure, great. So, friends, any other thoughts, questions?
Yes, which door do we come in?
So, Christiane said online she's quite okay with the rambling, and I thank you. So someone online said that she's okay with my rambling, and I said thank you.
So what caused the rabbis to contemplate this?
What caused the rabbis to contemplate
Yeah.
right? So I would guess that, well, in Jewish, because they're very concerned with Jewish law, and Jewish law prescribes what your obligations are towards others, and your obligations towards animals, which animals you can eat and which ones you can't. The ones you can't eat, how you can kill them to eat, and right, things like that. And so you have to make distinctions based on that, right? But it's also obligations towards other humans. Like, well, you're more obligated to your fellow Israelite than you're right. And but that's how humans. We are like you would think. Oh, our rabbis were racist or something like that. But no, we're more obligated to your fellow citizen in America than you are.
I agree,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but did they, yeah, It's true.
Yeah, yeah. They believe that the world was created in the image of God, but because of being part of the family of Abraham, you had different obligations to an Israelite than you had to a non-Israelite, right? And then, you have different obligations, those in your family, like you're supposed to honor your parents, not someone else's parent, right? You're in your family versus others, right? So making these distinctions of different gradations of sentient beings and then different gradations of humans within that, or humans from that, and then different obligations within humanity, right? So I think that's maybe why.
So I'm going back, I know everybody wants to go home. I'm still thinking about this mom thing, which really is freaking me out.
Like this what thing?
The thing about recreating your.
Oh, right.
Freaking me out too.
So I guess my comment is, in this recreation, at what stage do we insert the memories, right?
Yes.
So like, because we all know that as we age, what we remember changes.
Yeah.
And even the version of what we remember, like any family, I think, can say,
Right.
it's not how that went down.
Yeah.
Right. So I think now all that they could do is just from text, right?
Right.
So you have to write it as
So obviously, right now, this is a very limited concept.
yeah.
Because we don't have, because it would only be as good as, how much mom was on the internet, which is not much.
Right.
No,
But again, like as you go forward, some chip is in your brain, which is really weird.
Yeah.
And maybe records your memories or something like that.
Or they figure, and sometime in the future, people talk about like Ray Kurzweil that, we'll be able to figure out the chemical processes and the
Yeah.
wavelengths in your
Right.
brain that you'll be able to.
Then you have.
upload into a
this
computer.
Eliminates that family conversation about how did that really go down, because there's no more perspective, right?
Right, so
Perspective has been.
right,
completely
and so you're saying memory has to do with your relationship to others and your embodiedness at that time, and then how that changes
all
over
relative,
time,
right?
right? Yeah, so
relative.
memory is relative and not, yeah.
Right, because somebody can inform you of something you didn't know about.
Yeah.
But you couldn't. do
That changes your story
With us,
and changes your memories,
yeah.
To me, it was sort of interesting what I was thinking about, because to me, mental states themselves are like really hard to capture.
Yeah.
Leslie, and I just think back to like my undergraduate, I learned, because I went to college in the 80s and just coming off in psychology, like behaviorism.
Yeah.
And they said, we don't even care about your mental states,
Right.
because we can't know what they are.
Mhm.
And everything about you is just what you say or do.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
So to me, that kind of
they'd
smacks of, what's that?
measure intention with I.
Measure it, so,
Yeah.
but that's the only thing you could really know.
right,
That's right, for something else.
So
right.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
something, I mean,
Psychology.
So
Great.
back, so I'll end with this, I guess. So from if you're here 2 weeks ago, our exploration of the Bible, some idea of creating the image of God is what it means to be human, and we explored different ideas of what that might mean. This week, we definitely focused, or I tried to focus a lot about embodiedness, right? And we'll see where we go when we get into more medieval philosophy and as we go beyond into the future. So friends, thank you for being with me and studying with me, helping me learn, and I hope to see you again.
Who's
Thank
taking
you.
the next two?
So Eric Dreff, who's a congregant of ours, who has a PhD in Jewish thought, medieval Jewish thought.
We're moving to medieval times
Yeah.
now.
he teaches at Rutgers.
Yeah.
He's
Thank you.
really, he's a genius. I mean,